Hey, live news flash. This is Kraig Smyth coming to you with some more Disengage from Linear Mindset. And my lighting just quit, which is too bad, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway because I have something to say, as usual. So, I titled this one Changes in Finding Optimism because I didn't want to write government or politics on there. But it's really for everybody that's worried about the government shutdown. I have to say to you, you need to disengage from linear mindset, because these governments are and never were sustainable, right? Rule number one, because they're not based on the fundamentals of nature, natural law, contemporary society. The government in contemporary societies does not recognize nature as being the one most important priority under which everything else needs to fall. And that's just plain logic. It's 7th grade science, so done, end of story. These governments aren't ever going to work. So what's going to happen? Well, if you're afraid of that, then you need to get outside your own little worry zone and understand there is a lot of people that do understand that nature needs to come first. In fact, if there was enough people that understood that in the governments could be potentially a viable system. But sometime the governments in their current form, all governments, all so-called first world societies, governments, they're not going to work. Nothing is going to work unless nature is recognized first. Any human management system has to come underneath the big veil of nature, underneath the big umbrella of nature, And any logic needs to be based on the foundations of nature, because that's our biggest common denominator. So what we want to do, first of all, is get our heads around that, because it all starts with the human's philosophy, the human's mental capacity. Without the humans understanding laws of nature and that nature has to come first, nothing's going to happen. No system is going to work. There's not going to be any kind of human management system, any kind of government, anything that's going to work without the cognitive awareness of natural processes. End of story. And it just all ends right there. The fact that, governments have been in place for a long time, but how effective have they been? They haven't been. They've been slowly deteriorating ever since their inception. And their inception was not based on understanding of humans and how human growth works and how nature works. These weren't concepts that were created because government entities were so great at understanding how humans live and grow. All mainstream governments are in effect because they conquered and killed to get to places of power. So if we talk about general big brushstroke mental attitudes, all these governments, all these superpowers, as they say, all got there because they conquered and killed. And if you need that explained, that's not a nurturing mindset. That's not a growth mindset. That's the opposite of life and growth and nurturing. It is the 100% exact opposite. And if you pay attention, you see these things. You see these things in quote-unquote elected officials in government systems. If you know anything about human character, you see this lack of sustainability manifested and shown outwardly in the individuals. So change is going to happen, and these governments aren't going to facilitate change on a level that's sustainable in any way, shape, or form. Because while individuals grow exponentially, and there's another piece to finding optimism, is that individuals are growing exponentially. Government is basically a static organization, a static series of management systems. And it'll never keep up with human growth. Right now, the only thing governments do as a whole is impede human growth and natural growth. So nature's going to overtake that. And nature's working, whether you're in a high-rise office in downtown New York or actually out here able to observe things like this firsthand. We're all on this planet. So nature is absolutely going to make things happen. And it's just up to the people. If the people can adapt to that, and if people can embrace that and understand the limitations of some of these man-made systems that are happening right now, and step up and step into place. You know, if people say, oh, well, what if we stop driving all cars? What if, we need oil? We don't need oil. We don't need anything, because here's how mainstream works, is that the second any one of those things will stop, private enterprise is right there in line to find the next thing. The technology is there, it just hasn't been forced to use. And that's unfortunate. And that's a huge disconnect with mainstream society, with contemporary society, is that they can't address natural threats to the future. They've digressed so much they can't see. They can't see ahead. They can't even see in the moment. And again, if you pay attention to people, you'll know this, and you'll see the people that I'm talking about. They're all around, but there's plenty of people that do know that. But technologies are in place to take the place of just about everything, or they would be. And is there a possibility that there's going to be some, a little bit of disruption in the meantime? Yeah, sure. But don't buy into the end days, doom, gloom, that kind of thing. The end of one thing is always the beginning of another, and that's a natural cycle. The death of one thing is always life for another. That's shown, that's natural law 101, 7th grade science. So, if there's anyone out there that's concerned about government shutdown, don't be. Don't be. It just, the only thing that does to me is show the world the limitations of these systems, and that any system has to have a foundation of, you hear the kingfisher? Time out for the kingfisher. Any system has to have a foundation of nature. Kingfisher agrees. And we just can't build management systems without having a solid foundation. Simple as that. End of story. End of conversation. And we can't build laws and management systems that we get stuck behind. Anything static, the best thing that we can make. Here's how I explain laws. Is that our best ideas are always history. They're never up to date, because I can write something now that's my best idea, but that time that I wrote that has already passed, and there's been evolutions, there's been growth in human development. And so this is what I say, where these static systems can never keep up to exponential human growth. That's why we live in the now. That's why we pay attention. That's why we have to understand truth when it comes around on a natural level. And we can't revert back to, ooh, what does the law say? So we write down this system of human management articles, laws, whatever. And it's okay to have them over here and to check and to say, oh, okay, well, yeah, there's some good information, and there's some good information in Taoism, the Bible, whatever, wherever. There's been great information written down. But we can't take that page, that static information, and hold it like this in front of us so we can't see. It's as simple as that. But this is, contemporary society needs to get to the point to understand how to use tools, how to use these tools without making them addictions. When we can't live without, when we hold up the law in front of progress, that's not progress. We're dynamic beings using static processes, but they need to be used and not abused. And that's the point that humans need to look at it. Humans need to look closer at that and need to think about things like that. Having systems is great. I'm a business person. I use systems all the time. Systems are great, but you have to understand the limits of their use. Just like everything else, we have to understand the limits of government. We have to understand big picture. It's not a Republican-Democrat thing. It's the big picture. It's all of that. We're not going to elect anyone that's going to make a big enough difference fast enough to create change through that system. It has to be within. Individuals have to rise. Individuals have to do their own thought and not rely on anything outside of ourselves to make ourselves better, to make our species better. It all comes from within. When the average consciousness of the average human gets to a certain point, then things will be okay. So don't get stuck in linear mindset. Don't get stuck in contemporary false narratives. Disengage from linear mindset. Take care of yourself. Don't listen to the contemporary stuff. Don't get strung out on the government. Don't get caught up in that big tail chase of mainstream society. Trust the natural process. Trust yourself to grow and look at things more in depth. And that's what will create change for the better. It is okay if these governmental systems die. Something will take its place. Be that something. All right, there you go. Kraig Smyth, disengage from linear mindset. Do it. It's important.